Wuthering Heights, Chapter 21, Part 3. Mr. Heathcliff, having overheard the conversation, as well as I, smiled when he saw him go, but immediately afterwards cast a look of singular aversion on the flippant pair, who remained chattering in the doorway, the boy finding animation enough while discussing Hareton's faults and deficiencies, and relating anecdotes of his goings-on, the girl relishing his pert and spiteful sayings without considering the ill nature they evinced. But I began to dislike, more than to compassionate, Linton, and to excuse his father in some measure for holding him cheap. We stayed till afternoon. I could not tear Miss Cathy away before, but happily my master had not quitted his apartment and remained ignorant of our prolonged absence. As we walked home, I would fain have enlightened my charge on the characters of the people we had quitted, but she got it into her head that I was prejudiced against them. "Ah," she cried, "you take papa's side, Ellen. You are partial, I know, or else you wouldn't have cheated me so many years into the notion that Linton lived a long way from here. I'm really extremely angry, only I'm so pleased I can't show it. But you must hold your tongue about my uncle. He's my uncle, remember, and I'd scold papa for quarreling with him." And so she ran on till I dropped endeavoring to convince her of her mistake. She did not mention the visit that night because she did not see Mr. Linton. Next day it all came out, sadly to my chagrin, and still I was not altogether sorry. I thought the burden of directing and warning would be more efficiently borne by him than by me, but he was too timid in grieving satisfactorily reasons for his wish that she should shun connection with the household of the Heights, and Catherine liked good reasons for her very restraint that harassed her pitted will. "Papa," she exclaimed after the morning salutation, "guess whom I saw yesterday in my walk on the moor." "Ah, papa," you started. "You've got done right, have you now? I saw, but listen, and you shall hear how I found you out. And Ellen, who is in league with you, and yet pretended to pity me so when I kept hoping, and was always disappointed about Linton's coming back." She gave a faithful account of her excursion and its consequences, and my master, though he cast more than one reproachful look at me, said nothing till she had concluded. Then he drew her to him and asked if she knew why he had concealed Linton's near neighborhood from her. Could she think it was to deny her a pleasure that she might harmlessly enjoy? "It was because you disliked Mr. Heathcliff," she answered. "Then you believe I care more for my own feelings than yours, Cathy?" He said. "No, it was not because I disliked Mr. Heathcliff, but because Mr. Heathcliff dislikes me, and is a most diabolical man, delighting to wrong and ruin those he hates if they give him the slightest opportunity. I knew that you could not keep up an acquaintance with your cousin without being brought into contact with him, and I know he would detest you on my account. So, for your own good and nothing else, I took precautions that you should not see Linton again. I meant to explain this some time as you grew older, and I'm sorry I delayed it." "But Mr. Heathcliff was quite cordial, papa," observed Catherine, not at all convinced, "and he didn't object to our seeing each other. He said I might come to his house when I pleased. Only I must not tell you because you had quarrelled with him and would not forgive him for marrying Aunt Isabella. And you won't. You are the one to be blamed. He is willing to let us be friends, at least, Linton and I, and you are not." My master perceived that she would not take his word for her uncle-in-law's evil disposition, gave a hasty sketch of his conduct to Isabella, and the manner in which Wuthering Heights became his property. He could not bear to discourse long upon the topic, for though he had spoke little of it, he still felt the same horror and detestation of his ancient enemy that had occupied his heart ever since Mrs. Linton's death. She might have been living yet if it had not been for him, was the constant bitter reflection, and, in his eyes, Heathcliff seemed a murderer. Miss Cathy, conversant with no bad deeds except her own slight acts of disobedience, injustice, and passion, rising from her hot temper and thoughtfulness, and repented of on the day they were committed, was amazed at the blackness of spirit that could brood on and cover revenge for years, and deliberately prosecute its plan without a visitation of remorse. She appeared so deeply impressed and shocked at this new view of human nature, excluded from all her studies and all her ideas till now, that Mr. Edgar seemed it unnecessary to pursue the subject. He merely added, "You will know hereafter, darling, why I wish you to avoid his house and family now. Return to your old employments and amusements, and think no more about them." Catherine kissed her father and sat down quietly to her lessons for a couple of hours according to custom. Then she accompanied him into the grounds, and the whole day passed as usual. But in the evening, when she had retired to her room and went to help her undress, I found her crying and on her knees by the bedside. "Oh, fie, silly child!" I exclaimed. "If you had any real griefs, you'd be ashamed to waste a tear on this little contrary. You never had one shadow of substantial sorrow, Miss Catherine. Suppose for a minute that master and I were dead, and you were by yourself in the world. How would you feel then? Compare the present occasion with such an affliction as that, and be thankful for the friends you have, instead of coveting more." I'm not crying for myself, Ellen, she answered. It's for him. He's expected to see me again tomorrow, and there he'll be so disappointed, and he'll wait for me, and I shan't come. Nonsense, I said. Do you imagine he has thought as much of you as you have of him? Hasn't he Hareton for a companion? Not 1 in 100 would weep at lowing a relation they had just seen twice for 2 afternoons. Linton will conjecture how it is, and trouble himself no further about you. But may I not write him a note to tell him why I cannot come? She asked, rising to her feet. And just to send those books I promised to lend him? His books are not as nice as mine, and he wanted to have them extremely when I told him how interesting they were. May I not, Ellen? No, indeed. No, indeed, replied I with decision. Then he would write to you, and there would never be an end of it. No, Miss Catherine, the acquaintance must be dropped entirely. No, so Papa expects, and I shall see that it is done. But how can one little note, she recommenced, putting on an imploring countenance. Silence, I interrupted. We'll not begin with your little notes. Go into bed. She threw at me a very naughty look, so naughty that I would not kiss her good night at first. I covered her up and shut her door, and in great displeasure. But repenting halfway, I returned softly, and lo, there was Miss standing at the table with a bit of blank paper before her and a pencil in her hand, which she guiltily slipped out of sight on my re-entrance. You'll get nobody to take that, Catherine, I said, if you write it, and at present I shall put out your candle. I set the extinguisher on the flame, receiving as I did so a slap on my hand and a petulant cross thing. I then quitted her again, and she drew the bolt in one of her worst and most peevish humors. The letter was finished and forwarded to its destination by a milk fetcher who came from the village, but that I didn't learn till some time afterwards. Weeks passed on, and Kathy recovered her temper, though she grew wondrous fond of stealing off to corners by herself, and often if I came near her suddenly while reading, she would start and bend over the book, evidently desirous to hide it, and I detected edges of loose paper sticking out beyond the leaves. She also got a trick of coming down early in the mornings and lingering about the kitchen as if she were expecting the arrival of something, and she had a small drawer in her cabinet in the library, which she would trifle over for hours, and whose key she took special care to remove when she left it. One day, as she inspected this drawer, I observed that the playthings and trinkets, which recently formed its contents, were transmuted into its bits of folded paper. My curiosity and suspicions were roused. I determined to take a peep at her mysterious treasures. So at night, as soon as she and my master were safe upstairs, I searched and readily found among my house keys one that would fit the lock. Having opened, I emptied the whole contents into my apron and took them with me to examine at my leisure in my own chamber. Though I could not but suspect, I was still surprised to discover that they were a mass of correspondence, daily almost, it must have been, from Linton Heathcliff. Answers to documents forwarded by her, the earlier dated, were embarrassed and short. Gradually, however, they expanded into copious love letters, foolish as the age of the writer rendered natural, yet with touches here and there which I thought were borrowed from more experienced sources. Some of them struck me as singularly odd compounds of ardor and flatness, commencing in strong feeling and concluding in the affected, wordy way that a schoolboy might use to a fancied incorporeal sweetheart. Whether they satisfied Kathleen, I don't know, but they appeared very worthless trash to me. After turning over as many as I thought proper, I tied them in a handkerchief and set them aside, re-locking the vacant drawer.